do this, you'll be confident. But the reality is competence breeds confidence, meaning do it.
I always find it interesting, like trying to balance holding yourself accountable and not beating the shit out of yourself.
It's very fascinating just seeing how similar humans are and how different they are all at once.
So Adam, do you like vegetables?
Not that much anymore. I lived on them for 13 years, and then I realized being a vegetarian is a bad idea. By the way, I know I offended someone. I apologize. But, yeah, I'm sure I did.
If I had $1 for every time I offended someone...
I know, right?
I'd be wealthy.
I do like vegetables, though. I like Brussels sprouts a lot, and I really like asparagus, and I really like broccoli. So I guess I still do. I'm jaded, man. I drank the Kool-Aid, and it didn't do me much favors in the long run. So now I like steak.
I'm a big steak guy, big ribeye guy. I tried being a vegetarian it lasted 9 days, and it wasn't for me. That's fine. It works for a lot of people.
I did it for 15 years. I think it was 15, 13 or 15.
That's a stint.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you know what vegetables kind of cool, but like not awesome, not really cool?
What's that?
Radish.
Oh, I like radish. Radish is good. I also like roasted carrots. This is great. This first interview, I opened up talking about vegetables.
Well, I slip a dad joke in there, right? The radish, and then we have fun.
Oh,
right? Like,
I didn't even catch the dad joke. I get it now.
That's fine.
Because I actually really like radish. I put salt on it. You're like, what vegetable is really cool? Radish. What can you do? What can you do?
All good, brother. Dude, I'm so excited to have you here. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 34 of the Mission Control Podcast. I'm with the roof strategist, Adam Bensman. Bro, what is going on?
Oh, just keeping my head above water. We're having fun, growing quick, being busy, trying to capitalize on the little time I have in the office, and really, really excited and feeling enthusiastic about where things are going. So, yeah.
Dude, fantastic. You may not know this, but you're going to know it now because I'm going to tell you. In my office, I put YouTube on and I listen to your content. I don't sell roofs. You have a great on-camera presence and a very good way of making things resonate. So I'll tell you what, if this doesn't ever work out for me, I'm going to go sell some roofs. Shout out to my boy here. I appreciate
dig it.
You, bro.
I love it, man. I love it. Well, thanks for the kind words. I'm glad to see you're jiving on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. And thanks to our listeners and thanks to our sponsor, Roofer. If you need instant roof measurements or clean and pristine proposals, hit up the team at Roofer. What was the first video you shot as a roof strategist?
Oh, shit. I have no clue. I don't know the first one. I started filming them. So the way that this whole channel started, and I'm only crossing my arms. My office is freezing cold, so if anyone's watching, that's why.
So don't read too far into the non-verbals.
Don't read into the body language. I'm just cold. That's why I'm drinking hot tea out of a cow mug.
He fucking hates this podcast.
Like, Michael, you suck.
Right. Yep.
No, so the channel started completely on accident, and the reason I don't know which video. I mean, if you went back, anyone go on YouTube, sort by date, whatever one was up there was the first one, but. I was working with companies one-on-one and doing I was like kind of the jack of all trades consultant, so to speak. So I covered everything from ops and the repetition started to get boring for me. And I love roofing company owners and I know that they're really busy. So we'd meet and go through stuff and he'd be like, hey, did this get relayed to your team? And it didn't. And I felt like I was struggling up against the bottleneck, which was often, and I'm the owner of a company. I am the bottleneck at my own company. I'm not faulting anyone, but the execution follow through, it just kept me at arm's length from the team. So then I just had this idea. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to film a few videos. I'll put them on my website. You have to log in with a password. And that way I can be like, hey guys, just share that stuff with your team. Just like a few things that we were working on and talking about. And at some point, I had a series of being burned where it put a bad taste in my mouth. It made me view kind of the whole industry as crooked and corrupt because I was jaded. And I'm going to be frank, I'm still a little jaded. I have a very hard time with the trust factor with folks. Just lots of bad experiences. So when I decided to take a break from the roofing sales space on attempt to quit number 3, I stepped away. I stayed as a direct response copywriter and consultant. And I just said, you know what? I didn't know technology. I'm just like, my videos, I put them on YouTube because I had no idea how to put them on the internet. So I put them on YouTube unlisted. They're on the website behind my password. And then I was like, just make them free. So I just flipped it from unlisted to public. And I said, I hope it helps someone. And I had zero intention of ever coming back. And I was wrong. And I was really self-conscious. I didn't think people would like my style. I thought I'd get chewed apart. I thought I'd get a lot of hate comments and stuff. And because I didn't think that people would jive on the style, considering that just generally the more, I don't know, it just seemed like a really broy, salesy kind of industry. And I was totally floored when people were like, yo, make more, dude. They're really helping. And I'm like, wait, what? For real? So anyway, sorry I gave you more than you asked for, but that's why I can't remember. I don't know. I just threw some videos up that I thought would help me.
You gave me one that I asked for. It's bringing value, right? How could I be mad at you? It's funny because I've met people that are extremely extroverted, incredible communicators, and then you turn a camera on and fucking night and day, right? There's like something that happens. Yeah. I even noticed it when I started shooting content. I've got a long way to go as far as like being good on camera presence, doing the little ticks and the things that you do, the uhs, the rights, the likes, right?
I'm still working on it myself. My wife gave me a critique yesterday. She's like, you gotta stop this.
It's so challenging.
Yeah.
But even the best of communicators, I feel like, have that, even initially, if it's just initially, that lack of confidence when they step in front of a camera. And it's an odd phenomenon to kind of experience.
It is, isn't it? It's yeah.
So how did you get over that side of it? Because there's a lot of people in the roofing industry that want to leverage or will begin and continue to leverage, content in a different way, but to get in front of their target audience for branding, for awareness, for education. How did you surpass that intimidation factor or that lack of confidence that you said you had first experienced?
Yeah, and I want to just correct something. It wasn't a lack of confidence. It was a lack of certainty that other people would like my stuff. It was really more of an internal problem of, are people going to like this? Am I going to get shit for it? Are people going to give me bad feedback? Gosh, can I say that? I don't swear on my own podcast or my own stuff.
It's marked explicit, so you're good.
Perfect. It's Friday, so there you go. So it wasn't a confidence thing on the camera. It was confident in other people feeling like I had something that was worth listening to. And there's no, I wish I had a magic, phrase or a magic piece of advice that would say, do this, you'll be confident. But the reality is competence breeds confidence, meaning do it. And the only way you get better is by doing it. And now, public speaking is different. Getting in front of groups is different. Doing role play in front of a live group and being asked questions and challenged in front of thousands of people, it can be a vulnerable feeling. And the only way to get confident is to do it. So my best advice, if you want to be confident on camera, get on camera a lot and do it. And the other thing that I would share that has helped me just in the filming side of things is I don't view that thing, this little camera deal, as like the you. Everyone's like, hey, you all, hey, people. Like, no, you're not talking to people. You're talking to you. I'm talking to you, Michael, and I'm talking to you, the listener. So when you just make your videos for you, the one person who needs to hear this, it really helps you. It helps channel your energy into being direct and personable and not trying to pretend that you're on a stage talking to an audience. If that makes sense.
That's a very interesting, nuanced perspective that I haven't given much thought to.
Yeah. Do you know Michael Masterson? Does that name ring a bell to you?
No.
Michael Masterson, I believe, is the highest paid direct response copywriter alive. And I got tickets to an event. I ended up not being able to go. I tuned into his webinar. I got the recordings. And he had said, my golden rule when writing sales copy is to write it as if I was writing it to my mother. That's what he does. He just thinks I'm writing an email or a sales letter to one person, to personalize it, because that's what fosters connection. And that really landed with me. And that's kind of like when you get into the world of copywriting, which to me was one of the greatest skill enhancers that I that opportunity to learn how to take what I was doing in person and put it in writing was humbling beyond belief. I sucked. I really sucked. Like, dude, I started my first business in this roofing space, and I thought I was going to kill it because I'm like, I was confident in my sales skills in person, and then I brought it online. And outside of like the people that I knew, outside of that, I made zero sales because I was learning to sell online, and it flopped. And it was 6 months in, make or break. I finally was trying to get to the drawing board of like, what do I do in person? And then how do I replicate that in writing, but overcoming all the things that I can't control when I'm in person, like reeling attention back in, using tonality and body language and fluctuations in my voice and, grabbing your attention. So I put all this in writing, and I sent 3 emails, and in that week I got $100,000 of contracted sales. And I was like, I think I figured it out. I think we did something. and I was so excited about it. And what I've learned through that experience is that the medium in which we sell is just very different. And one of the key takeaways, the reason I shared that story, is that the personalization of that email copy in that experience is really one of the many components that, when assembled appropriately, just became really potent and really, really helpful. So, and that's important to me to this day, is just connecting with people on a human level.
Yeah, it's super smart. I think it's a really good approach, and I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people here, and hopefully help them out. You're helping me, if nothing else.
Yeah, well, that's all that matters.
Selfishly, if you can help me,
here.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. It's just us.
Yeah.
It's just us.
It is.
So you made an interesting point. Doing the stuff on camera and getting in front of an audience in person, completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
When did you realize that?
Experience. A camera... When what I really anytime I'm working with someone in sales, roofing sales in person, commercial, multifamily, multiple decision makers, guys or gals selling on Zoom, which is a more and more common thing for both roof and solar. Yep. We need to remember where our customers are at, where our audience is physically at during this process. When you go into a Mercedes, BMW, Porsche dealership, you're greeted with someone in a suit. You're offered a beverage. It's more than just like Kirkland water. You've got your Perrier, a little higher class. There's leather lounge chairs around and couches, and they want to make you comfortable because they want you to write a check. And they can sell in a certain way in that environment. When you're in person, if I'm let's say running an event, I ran 2 events this week, one in Indianapolis, one in Detroit. Just finished a training session on our Pitch Pro movement this morning. Each of those is different. When I've got an audience in front of me, I can read them. I can work the room. Silence is okay because it draws people in. It's awkward when it's on a podcast. Editor might edit that out. So all those little things that in person are part of the roller coaster we take folks on as a presenter, to draw attention back, amp up energy, being able to I do silly stuff, man. I'm gonna jump around and things, and I can do that in person, but on camera you just look like a maniac and it's distracting. So on camera, I generally have a faster speaking cadence because I know if I'm to meet where my people are, they're in bed at night, they're driving in their truck, listening and tuning into the podcast, so they want the audio, they want to hit me with something impressive fast, and I want to learn. Or they're again, on the YouTube platform, that it's leisure time and or working out. That's the kind of the key. I know those are absolute opposites, right? Working out and leisure time. But the point is, they're there intentionally, and you need to meet people where they are. So yeah, just very, very different. You lose. There's a lot of things you can do in person that body language signals are even easier to pick up in person than they are on camera. Camera goes so far, but in person, doing role play and being able to make shifts and coach and facilitate someone to use the eyebrow flash, the chin wave, the open palm hey, you feel this in a different respect when you're in an in-person environment than over the camera. So again, just meet people where they're at. If you know that your audience is going to be in their home on Zoom, you're going to be presenting in a different way than if they're sitting in a recliner with their feet up. And I don't know if you've ever been on Zooms with a lot of people. The ones that are unengaged and listening, they're doing this, right? So the camera's there. I'm watching something, checking in every now and again, distracted, kind of tuning in. Versus if I'm out in person, I'm here and I'm in it. And we just need to be cognizant of where our audience is so we can meet them where they are.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So What was your first speaking engagement in front of a large group of people?
Oh man. It was some supplier in Texas, and I don't even remember where. I was a consultant for another brand at that point, and I think that may have been it. I spoke at. Yeah, that may have been it. Is it a supplier? And I can't even remember. I think it was 2014, I want to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you get it on camera?
No, I don't think I have any of my speaking engagements on camera. The only time I find it is when someone at a conference records it, and I didn't even know it was being recorded. I shouldn't say that. Sometimes I know it's being recorded, but the ones that shows are at conferences are recorded. But yeah, not.
What when you were having that conversation with the audience, what were some things after the fact where you're just like, fuck, I shouldn't have done this, or I kept doing this. Why did I do that? What were those things?
I have lots of those things. This is my journal. Just so happened. You know what's funny? So I actually just had this up. So see where it says after action report. I do an after action report on every event. Knock on wood, I don't have anything that jumps. Sorry, I'm superstitious. I don't remember anything that I was like, oh crap, I shouldn't have done that. But I still mess up. I'll tell you one of my biggest mistakes from this last week. But I always write what I did well, what I could do differently from events. And then I turn what I could do differently into a plan. I'm trying to see a better one that'll be easier to see on camera. But this is my journal of where I do all of those reports. And we're starting to do them internally with our team. But anyway, like this last week, I've been playing more with humor. I've been studying humor. And I make some jokes because I used to be a professional butt flusher. So I was a colon hydrotherapist. So I was joke. I was a broke butt flusher. And anyway, somehow shithead came up and we were like doing some banter and I like inadvertently called a dude a shithead, but it was like totally being playful and like, that didn't land. Oh my God. You know, have you ever said something and then as the words are coming out, you're like, no. So I was like trying to reel it back in. It was one of those moments and I humbly apologized in front of everyone. And I was like, you know what, man? I regret doing that. And in my after action report will be a keynote, never call someone a shithead, even if it's a joke. So I guess it was just pushing boundaries and being a little too comfortable.
Yeah, it's. I guess whether you're on stage or just having conversations in everyday life, those boundaries are kind of hard to establish depending on the nature of the relationship, right? And people become more comfortable as you got more of a rapport, and it's like. Yeah, and I think naturally we push boundaries, especially when you're in like that ball-breaking banter type situation, right? And it's like, I mean, I said some shit to my boss the one time when we were out golfing. I'm like, yeah, I forgot you were the VP of the company. Yeah, like, I may have pushed the boundary a little bit too far. It
happens. It can happen. You know, the other thing too is every audience is different. You know, I've had an opportunity now. Gosh, I think I'll probably end up doing like 50 or 60 speaking events this last year. And I think we're slated for probably about the same, maybe a little more this year. And one thing that I've gathered is that crowds feed off each other and cultural differences, like being up in the Northeast when you're speaking to an audience in Connecticut or Long Island. Long Island folks are very different than running an event. I ran an event in Pasadena, California, which was different. Portland was different. Seattle was different. I just got back from Indianapolis and Detroit. And what's interesting is everywhere you go, there's just different levels of energy and engagement and what's acceptable and cultural nuances and time of day when you're slated to speak. You know, like it's very fascinating just seeing how similar humans are and how different they are all at once. Because there's sometimes it's like, man, that room is dead. And then people come up to me after like, man, I friggin' loved it. And then I get this like phenomenal feedback. And I'm like, wasn't expecting that because the room, but it's because they don't want to like get all excited or participate because their competitors are there. And they're like, are they going to see what I'm saying?
Sure.
So it's really funny. I got to share one story because this was from Indy this week. I was asking, I said, who here's knocking doors? And no one raised their hand, like virtually no one. And it was early in the morning. And I know energy sometimes is low early in the morning. You're in a training. So anyway, carry on. Halfway through the day, guy goes, I got a question. I noticed like no one here is knocking doors and I really don't want to knock doors. It makes me feel sleazy and salesy. And I said, that's not true. Everyone here lied to you. And I I just knew that everyone was. I'm like, so now that we got that out of the way, everybody, can we just get a correct raise of hands? Who here knocks doors? And then the whole room raised their hand laughing. So people are just different, man. Everyone wants to kind of keep their stuff secret. And my mission is to just help everyone remember that we're kind of all on the same team. We're all doing the same thing on the same journey, and there's enough work to go around.
Yeah, we're in Indianapolis. We're in DFW. No one knocks doors, huh? Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So how much time and energy do you put into like understanding like that nuance, that the difference in culture and what's customary in this area, this region? How much time do you invest prior to an engagement trying to understand what that's going to feel like and how these different talking points are going to land? How much of a comedic approach are you going to be versus, how serious are you going to be? Like, what's that look like?
Yeah. Every single event I do, there's market research beforehand or meetings with either the team or, as Owens Corning's latest sales training partner, I meet with the OC team to learn from their folks, what's going on in their market and how do we custom tailor the content. And the next event we're doing in Denver, I shouldn't say the next, it's actually not the next, excuse me, but the event coming up that we're doing in Denver, I'm doing a whole new different approach because that market has seen some struggles that haven't been the same everywhere. I mean, it's been a total drought for 3 years. So we're totally curveballing the kind of go-to presentation that I've been doing to cater to this market. So everything's got to be customized to who your audience is, what we're speaking about, what they're going through. And it needs to land. I'm not going to sit there and talk storm work to a bunch of contractors in Pasadena that are selling retail and virtually only retail. It just doesn't land. Not to say there's not win and there's claims there, because I know there's people being like, oh, I've worked. I know you've worked them.
Yeah.
I get it.
Bullshit.
But I'm talking like the lion's share of the market is on retail. So we need to understand where people are at, and it's no different in sales. I like using that analogy. If you were to sell a Mercedes-AMG convertible in Miami, Florida, and you walked into the dealer and the dealer's like, man, you're going to love this thing. Heated seats, winter prep package, all-wheel drive. You're like, I don't give a crap. I'm in Miami, dude. But if I sold that same vehicle in Indianapolis, I'm going to want the all-wheel drive, the winter prep package, and heated seats, especially if I'm buying that vehicle in February, because then I can run my new Benz, my convertible Benz year-round. And although it's a benefit, it doesn't mean it's relevant to that person. So whether it's sales or presenting, we just need to know who we're speaking to and who we're working with, because whether we're a presenter, whether you're creating content, or whether you're in sales, in my opinion, you're a change maker. Your job, sales is just a fancy word to say conversation that ends in a transaction. At the end of the day, I believe salespeople are change makers that help take you from a current state to a future state. Same thing when you're producing content. You want to take that viewer, if you're trying to position yourself as the roofing salesperson to go to, you want to speak to your customer, her right there, and talk to her about where she is now and how you're going to help her get to here. And when you know where they're at, you can address it, but you're not going to give directions to LA when they want to go to Miami. So again, everything is about discovery. I realize now, you ask me how much time, I don't know, call it an hour or so probably. We generally have a half-hour meeting, and somewhere between there, hour of research. And a lot of it too is experience now. Like, I know what markets are what and who's in what market, what's been happening. I've kind of got ears to the ground in many respects, but it's important to know who you're talking to.
As was being picked up by OC on the sales training side, how has that helped having their resources behind you?
Man, they're an amazing team. And I got to tell you downright, I can say whatever the heck I want. That's the beautiful part. They are the best partners that I could ask for. I don't feel like I'm working with a massive corporation. I feel well cared for. I feel welcomed. I really like how they do their events and in the very strategic approach they take to investing in the growth of their contractors. There's value alignment on all stretches of throughout the chain of folks that I have the privilege of working with, and being able to have them and being able to work with them. I grabbed this last time I was at corporate, and I think you sent me home with a Pink Panther too. I've got him hanging out in the office. I don't know. There he is. But no, it's really an honor, man. I think in this industry, I really don't care about roofs. I don't care about product knowledge. Excuse me, not product knowledge. I'm not passionate about roofing is what I'm trying to say here. What excites me is the people and the relationships and the opportunity, and the value alignment and the relationships there are just amazing, just amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that being, like, that would be super important to me.
Yeah.
If I were to consider working with a manufacturer on, like, educating their contractors as far as digital marketing, how to avoid pitfalls, what things are effective, how to choose good partners. I do want to do that eventually.
Yeah.
I've always thought about it, and I just did some content with John Cenac not too long ago, and it's like, should you cuss in your content, and what kind of impact can it have on your brand? Like, our audience, when I deal with roofers, I can't imagine that they want a guy in a button-down shirt who's inauthentic and not who they are. Like, I don't know, when you get Mike Stearns, you get Mike Stearns, and for better or worse, and, you know, I was on with Jim Johnson last week, and he was like, you know, you're going to repel people and attract some people. And I'm like, I guess I'm okay with that.
Dude, there's no way around it. I mean, that's the other thing that when you said with cursing being ourselves, I think there's a part of, and by the way, challenge me on any of this stuff, but I think some people use the I'm just being me as a BS excuse to not take accountability or ownership or to clean it up. I can curse. When I'm on my own, I'll curse. I also know that in some environments, it makes you look stupid. And I also know that some people drop an F-bomb every other word, and it just makes you look uneducated. And again, this is my opinion. I'm not asking you to agree or disagree. And at the same time, you're going to have the next guy that's like, F yeah, man, I love this guy. You just like, everybody's different. You can't please everybody. You'll show up and be like prim and proper, and the next guy thinks you're a loser because you're a tight ass, right? And then you show up and you're a little too casual, and the next guy that's very religious is very offended by the foul use of your language. And I made a mistake. I did a training in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I was cursing and not crazy words, not horrible words. But I got feedback after from one of the OCASMs, and he's like, you know, I think you should dial it down. And I literally ask permission now. I said, hey, is it okay if I curse here and there? You guys can say no if it's going to offend anybody. And I just ask for permission. If someone says no, or if I'm prepped that like I'm going to jump into a conservative market, I'm not going to be me and just swear. I'm going to be respectful of other people. And I know that my information delivery needs to land whether or not I say shit or not. So for me, in a casual setting, if it's appropriate, and it kind of, I'll more use foul language as an emphasis, right? Not just for the sake of cursing. So if I'm making a point, and some people agree or disagree, and maybe my views will change, I'll tell you this, my views change a lot more and they stay consistent. And that's because I like to challenge my own perspectives, which is why I was vegetarian for 15 years, and now the opposite. I have 2 chest freezers full of a half cow and some beef and some game and whatever else is in there now. And, you know, I flip the script. Same thing. I'm refilming some of the stuff in our programs. I'm like, hey, you know what? Actually, I think we can do it better this way. So I'm all for continually challenging ourselves and growing, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I like what you said there. And, you know, some people use it as an excuse. And you can be yourself. You can be authentic while still having respect for the people around you. So when I went on to Jim Johnson's podcast 2 weeks ago, that's one thing that I asked, because I'm aware. I try to be aware that I can offend people, and if it's my show, it's my show, and I'll do what I want. Don't listen.
Which you have that's the thing though. You get to call the shots, and I like if you want to run your deal, man. No one's here to tell you otherwise. That's the thing. Like you got to write your own rules and do you, and if that's what you want to do it.
But when I'm going into his ecosystem with people that follow him and, you know, covet his show, it would be unfair for me to come in and be like, well, fuck that. And that could shell shock a lot of his audience. So I want to be mindful of that, and I want to cater to what they expect. Yeah. So that's I really like that you addressed that. And you even said that you did the same thing, right? Case in point, 7 minutes ago or 12 minutes ago, and you're like, is that okay to say? Yeah. You're being mindful of the fact that I have an audience, and they may or may not like that, but I'm telling you, they won't mind. It's fine. How important we'll talk more about some of this other stuff, but how important is diversity of thought in the world, and to be able to agree and disagree and still be friends regardless?
Oh, wow. We're going there. I think it's great, man. I think the problem is that social media now just kind of creates these echo chambers where people that share a view, that's all the social media platform is going to feed you, and then your friends are there. And I see these kind of even tiny little groups within the roofing community on Facebook that are this echo chamber of beliefs and philosophies that I don't jive with. That being said, I'm in a different place. I'm biased, of course, in many ways, as is everybody. And at the same time, that's the beauty of being human. And, you know, when you mentioned John Cenac, funny enough, I landed in Indy last week, and I was like, John Cenac's a mentor in the Pitch Pro movement with me that we run together, and it's like, hey, dude, I like totally forgot to let you know I'm going to be in Indy. Where are you around? An hour later, we were having coffee together, got to hang out. But he's one of the reasons that I put together the Pitch Pro movement. John's got a different perspective. Deshaun Bryant is in there. Deshaun and I don't agree on things. We agree on a lot of things, but there's a few things that we don't agree on. One of which is, what do you do with a no soliciting sign? He says, knock it. And I'm paraphrasing Deshaun. Deshaun, don't hate me if I mess this up. But if I remember right, basically, like what he says, the no soliciting sign is saying I don't have control of myself. I'm going to buy, so don't knock on my door. And they make sales. Like knocking no soliciting signs will make sales. I teach people, don't knock a no soliciting sign. Why? Because in my opinion, it's not respectful. Now, there's a difference between what works and what aligns with you, your values, and your output or your outlook. Sure. Him and mine are different. Does it mean one's better or worse? No. Does it mean one's wrong? No. But I invite that even in my own community. I'm like, Deshaun's going to teach one thing, I'm going to teach another. And there's been times that I've brought something up and people have pushed back, and I was like, let's have a conversation about it. I invite it, because through that, if we can all just approach sharing our views, and also let me take that back. Most importantly, listening with an open heart and checking our ego and our need to be right, and just listening to what other perspectives are, and then being able to share ours. If we can do that in an open environment and just say, hey, by doing so, I'm either going to strengthen my view over how I feel. I'll be like, okay, you just validated me. Or if you truly have an open heart, you're going to be like, actually, maybe that's a different perspective than I thought from before, and it'll expand your mind. So I think that it is absolutely mission critical, and I'm extra sensitive to it because there's things that I drank the Kool-Aid on the vegetarian and vegan thing, and I realized how dogmatic my views became, and that wasn't healthy. And then the minute that I saw things from a different perspective, I was like, I literally was brainwashed. I was freaking brainwashed. And I'm not implying anyone who's vegetarian is brainwashed at the moment. The context here is like, I kind of went in like with all I had, that plant-based was like the only way for the world to be. And yeah, we'll spare that. Again, people are going to disagree with me and call me a butthead. I'm like, practically, might as well talk about religion and politics here. But
I'm not
anyway,
going to push that envelope.
No, I'm kidding. I don't want that. When we started, you're like, is there anything off limits? I'm like, nothing's off limits. But that one, I'm putting off limits. I don't want to go down that road. that's gonna help no one. Let's leave them with something. But no, being able to challenge ourselves, and I still to this day, like beliefs that I hold very firm. I always am a healthy skeptic, if that makes sense.
I think it's so good and so important. I couldn't agree more. I've grown a lot just by asking people questions, right? And whether they know it or not, I'm asking those questions because I want to understand why you feel the way you feel. Yeah. And where is that rooted and how did you get there? Because I'm a rational person, and you get somebody's perspective and you're like, shit, I never thought about it that way, right? But you can't get there if you get defensive when somebody starts questioning your beliefs. Yeah. Right? And it could be something like a no solicitation sign. It could be something more serious. It could be something more trivial. It doesn't matter. I think is it a skill that you develop, the ability to remove the emotion somewhat from the situation and not feel like you're under attack, to be able to have that conversation with that open heart, not be judgmental, not get aggressive?
It's a good question. No one's ever asked me that question before. That's a good one. I think it's a combination of what started it is having to admit to myself that my views were changed, because it's scary to go to ourselves. Let me not say this. It was scary for me to look at my own self and say, how could I have been so wrong? And it makes you feel vulnerable and stupid. And there's a lot of times that I felt a need to seek validating information. And I'll give you an example, like the Game Changers movie on Netflix. Everyone's like, everyone should be vegan. And then once I kind of opened my eyes to see the propaganda of that film, and again, I apologize if I'm upsetting anybody, I believe that was a propaganda film. And when I looked and actually started to analyze all the quote unquote cases, I began to realize that there was virtually zero legitimate evidence whatsoever in that film. And I went from being like, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, I watched that validated what I'm doing. I'm vegan, that vegetarian's the way to go, save the planet, be healthy, plant power, hoorah. And then I saw it from the other perspective, and I was like, like completely opposite like that. And having that happen made me realize I just had to come to the terms I'm not always right and I'm impressionable. And without that experience, I don't think I would have been able to challenge my own worldviews, because now I'm always wondering, like, what am I not seeing? You know, if I had always, quote unquote, been right or thought I was right, I wouldn't challenge it. But it took being humbled. And I know I've said this enough, but I'm just going to say it again for the vegetarians that are listening. You're on your journey. You do you. If that's working, keep rocking it, okay? Like, I'm not here to judge. I just want to get that out of the way. So number one, it was just having to face the fact that I was, in my opinion, I switched my views, and I re-examined my position on things. So that was number one. Number two is becoming more confident in myself and not feeling like my worth is tied to my rightness and being an expert. Like, I know where I'm good and I know where I'm not good. And I just met with my team today, and I'm like, hey guys, through you, I've realized I really suck right here. So I'm really working on getting better at this so I can be a better leader for our team. Because I'm kind of a bull in the china shop, you know, and I'm like, yeah, we can do this. Let's go get this done. Like, and then I'm like, 4 days later, I'm like, I'm freaking out. We took out way too much. I'm going to die. So I was like, okay, not good on that front. So the second one was just kind of coming to terms with it. And then the third one, I think, is just maturity and age. You know, I remember when I made my first 6 figures, I thought I was the richest person in the world. I was arrogant. I had a huge ego. I thought for some reason my self-worth as a human was higher than others. Not healthy stuff. That's why I have different goals these days. Of course, I still have financial goals, but just the way I view that stuff is different. So age, experience, and being humbled, I think, are the only ways or that's what brought me to this place of just having that open mind and receptivity. And yeah, always challenging my own thought process.
It's good. And it was all peaked from you talking about growth and how you've gone about it. And it's so good. And guys, listen to him, do it. You made some very interesting pivots in how you were communicating that last sequence.
Oh yeah?
You went from like you guys and making like general statements into using more like I language and me.
Yeah.
Right. Talking more about your experience. Why?
Trying to do that more intentionally. One, to take ownership. I've noticed that when people often feel vulnerable talking about an experience, they distance themselves from that experience. So instead of, my experience was feeling vulnerable and stupid for feeling this way, it was, you know, when you think that you're right and you're not right, it makes you feel stupid. That's not, in my opinion, taking ownership of it. And number two, I've been very fascinated with continuing to understand the human condition as deeply as possible. And that is never mastered. I mean, I feel like I've got a good foundation, and at the same time, the more that I learn, the more I realize how little I know. So it's like the learning goes up, but what I feel like I know goes like this. And the reason is because there's so much, like off camera, there's just so much more. So Brené Brown has been inspiring to me. If anyone hasn't followed her, check out her TED Talk, read her book. I know she's got a bunch. I read Atlas of the Heart, and she defined these experiences. So I've been working really hard to more deeply understand my own emotional experience and communicating that clearly, because I believe that emotional intelligence and empathy is only one component of emotional intelligence, is the most valuable skill set to develop, I would say, in life from an interpersonal perspective. That's my opinion. And in sales, I think it is without a doubt the most important. Like landslide. I think someone with a high emotional IQ is probably going to outperform someone with a low emotional IQ, but better sales skills. That's my prediction. Right. I haven't split tested that, just for transparency. That would be cool. That'd be a cool one. Hey, if I had unlimited money, I'd start a behavioral economic research lab. That would be like dream come true to do these experiments. But at any rate, through reading that book and trying to discover my own experience and identify things a little bit more clearly and to be more inquisitive, has helped me understand myself, and therefore through direct experience, because sales is applied psychology, it's like applied little mini human experiences to communicate better with other people. And one example of that is this guy I was out to dinner with. We were in, where were we? I think it was in Columbus. The last couple of weeks, we're out to dinner, and I met him once before. and I really liked him. His name is Jesse, by the way. I really liked Jesse. And I asked myself, why? That's what I've been just trying to do. Why? Why did I like him so much? And I realized he looks at you with these doughy eyes, really attentive, forehead wrinkled, slight head cock, and he made you feel like you were the only person in the room. Made me feel like he's listening and active and engaged. And it was a two-way conversation. And when I'm not out at events, I'm really trying to just shut up and listen because I just talk all the time when I'm out training. And it's like, I'm actually more of an introvert. I kind of like to be an observer. And I'm sitting here, I'm like, why do I like Jesse so much? And that's when it clicked. I was like, I liked him because his body language and facial expressions and attention told me unconsciously, I like you. And people like people who like them back. So I've just been trying to dissect whenever I have a feeling or an emotion just to understand it, because the more I can understand my condition of being human, the more I can help other people and find new ways to communicate. Because at the end of the day, what I really love is the teaching interpersonal skills and teaching empathy. Like that's really the coolest part from my heart. Like that's what I love about what I do is just helping people connect more deeply. And sales is just a really cool way to do that because it ends with making a bunch of money and helping people out. And, why not, right? So
it's a good
result
from it.
Yeah, but yeah, did that answer your question or did I loop too much? Because I can reel it back.
No, it did. No, you answered it and you poured a lot more value in there. And the reason I asked it was in college, I took an interpersonal communication. I took a couple psych courses as well. Mm-hmm. And same thing. It's like you scratch the surface level. I felt way more behind than when I started the class because you realize you learn a little bit, but you realize how much you don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, holy shit, like how far can I go down this rabbit hole? But even some of the most like interpersonal communication. I was in the class, her name was Bonnie. I forget the teacher's last name, so sorry, Professor Bonnie. But she was asking like, tell me a story about this or tell me your opinion on this. And we go through these exercises. And like that's where I learned about like eye language and how you communicate your experience and then how you cast these on other people and essentially project your experiences into other people, onto other people, and like how damaging that is from an interpersonal communication standpoint and the impact that has. Yeah. And it's such a subtle thing, like devil's in the details. I say it all the time. Yeah. It's such a subtle thing that makes a fucking tremendous difference when you're sitting there and having a conversation with 1 or 1,000 people.
Do you happen to have, I don't mean to put you on the spot, do you have any book recommendations on that? Because what you just said about projecting that to other people, I hadn't heard that before, and that makes so much sense to me, and now I want to go down that rabbit hole. So if you think of one later, would you shoot me an email with it? And if you think of it now, share it with us, because I would
I don't have anything to share with you.
That's all good, man. I'll find a rabbit hole to go down, but I got to make a note in my journal.
I might be able to pull my syllabus because I still have my university email. Maybe I could pull my syllabus.
How in the world
we read?
That's too funny. I don't even know if I don't. Yeah, that's nice work.
Well, it's interesting. Funny story about college. I got a 4-year degree. It took me about 10 because I had my daughter when I was 19, so I went part-time, had my daughter, worked full-time. And I did collections, which that kind of grew me for sales. I feel like it was very challenging convincing people to pay for things that they haven't had in 4 years, 3 years, 7 years.
Yeah.
But college, dude, wow, college. So they had I'm talking about syllabus, and that syllabus is ultimately going to involve a book, right? Uh-huh. So this to me was such a racket. So what they did was the publishers made agreements with the university to where they're only going to make the book available via an online document. Furthermore, and you have to pay whatever $180 for this textbook. Furthermore, you could only print, it was like 15% of the book. It was like 6 pages per chapter, right? To stop it from just sharing it around the campus.
Yeah.
The problem is, I was, I think, 25 at the time. And I personally, I can do a lot of shit. I can look at data. I can do stats. I can do all these things that are meaningful on a computer. I can't sit and read off a computer for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. Bite-sized nuggets, maybe social media, 240 characters, sure. But if you want me to synthesize, I think it was like a 400-level stats class, political statistics. It was fucking awful. I would read something 3 times, and I have no idea. I'm like, I need to print this, and I need to have it in my hands. I'm like the old guy with a newspaper at the coffee shop, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, we can't accommodate you. You need to go to the thing for special needs and get classified. And I'm like, that's really unfair, not to me, but like to a lot of people, that you can't just print something that you're paying for.
Yeah.
Like, it was insane. But maybe I have it still. I don't know.
You know,
we took the scenic route.
That's a bummer. As someone who's had IP stolen and resold, let me tell you, I can understand the need to restrict that. And at the same time, it really sucks that people just steal from people, because in an ideal world, people would just treat people well and everyone could just, use that information without having to worry about that stuff. But unfortunately, that's not how the world works. Brian Tracy's book, what was it? Something for Nothing. I think that's what was that it? Something for Nothing? Brian Tracy. Anyway, that might be, yeah, it was. Here we go. Something for Nothing, the all-consuming desire that turns the American dream into a social nightmare. Really good book. By the way, you don't really probably need to read it. I read it, but it's all about people who want something for nothing. And
I was just going to write it down to have it ready so we could talk about it at Roofing Process.
Yeah, Something for Nothing. That's a good one. Brian Tracy's books are pretty short. You'll probably be able to rip through it in like an hour.
Does it have pictures?
That part I don't know. I don't know if it does. Mike needs photos. I'll bring you a coloring book.
I like photos. What do you want? So, this is interesting. These are the conversations. I love having these conversations. So, do you feel like people are, and there's obviously, it's subjective based on what your definitions are, but do you feel people are naturally good or bad?
My views on this have changed. I used to think not good. Now I think good. And I think that the way they turn out not good is a combination of survival mechanism, survival desires, and nurturing. That's my belief.
Interesting. It's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's a good answer.
One of the reasons why is I thought all roofers were scumbags. And then once I started doing this whole thing, I'm realizing, and I think it might be because like generally slime ball companies don't like my approach because it's like too nice, it's too, I have a customer focused sales style that requires empathy, patience, and education. And it works really darn well. But people that are into the snatch and grab, just in it for the money, high pressure sales tactics, they're not going to like my stuff. And so I could be, that could be my own echo chamber. But what I'm finding is that there's what I love about this industry is the volume of people who are good, hardworking people looking to make a significant change in their life. More often than not, it's folks that were in the same position I was, earning not good money, not feeling really great about where they are in life, finding out about this opportunity that sounds way too good to be true, betting on themselves, going all in, challenging themselves, jumping into this career despite when I do this from stage and I'm doing 2 to 3 events a week. And I ask this question, who here didn't believe in the earning potential? Hands go up, a large majority. Next one, who here had family concerned about their transition into roofing sales or outright not in support of it? And there's a good portion of people whose hands go up. And that's what's so cool is like starting to see how many just amazing, wholesome, real people. These are real people, just like us, trying to make a living and doing so from a really good place in their heart, a true desire to serve. And you can have both. You can have a true desire to serve and a true desire to earn really good money. The problem is when the scales are tilted in the wrong direction, right? So anyway, I know that was longer than you asked for, but I really do believe that people are naturally good. I think humans, by nature, the more I'm like getting into this, studying humans in psychology and evolution in history, I'm finding that we can't survive without each other. We are pack animals. We've always been. And I think that we are wired to work together. And that wiring, I think, gets damaged through desperation and nurturing, depending on influences in adolescence and so forth, their environment. But I don't know. That's just my opinion. But everyone's got one.
Everyone's got an opinion. I mean, it was very well articulated why you feel the way you feel, and I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Truly.
You're welcome.
So let me ask you this: when those scales start to tip, it's not always. It's I would argue probably the majority of the time it's not conscious that it happens, right? Especially if you haven't had money before, you start making money, things change, you have access to things. if those scales start to tip, how do you check in with yourself? How do you rein it in to get back to the more even balance?
Yeah, it's a good question. I can't tell someone how to do that. People need to go through it themselves. I mean, unfortunately, I can tell you what's worked for me. There's a time when I got into this industry and I was broke. I needed to make money. Money was everything. That was it. I was working to survive. I wasn't working to have fun. I was working so I could pay my rent and not go completely bankrupt. Like that was it. Just work. You got to do it. And then once you get enough money rolling in, then it changes and you're like, well, I did this. How much more can I get? And one of the things that tends to bother me in some of the showiness about financial gain is that it can create a culture either within an organization or by kind of poisoning someone's mind to do two things. Number one is make you feel like your self-worth is tied to your net worth. And I see that a lot. I made this, I made that. Who gives a shit? I know people who earn, I shouldn't say I know. There are people who are bathroom attendants earning minimum wage at best who are really good humans. And then there are billionaires who are not good humans. So my point is one's worth has nothing to do with how much you make. And I think that gets kind of like the status alignment behind I have the car, the plane, the Lambo, whatever it is, just it doesn't indicate personal worth. Second, I saw what happened to me when I started chasing money. I was literally visualizing. I was at the gym. This is messed up. I'm at the gym. I'm in my 20s, by the way. I just bought a house, paid cash for a kitchen remodel, got a new truck, driving a Benz, got an ATV, got a boat. From the outside, everything looks great. I'm driving home one day, miserable, unhappy. And meanwhile, I come home unhappy. I'm drinking all the time at night. Not all the time. At night after work to wind down and go to bed. And it became problematic. That was my go-to. And then the seldom times I'd go to the gym, I remember this one time I was at the 24-hour fitness place near my house. I got there at like 8:30 at night. I was literally on the treadmill visualizing my next income goal, running after it. I mean, that is the definition of chasing money. And that going that far out of balance means that like goals are really helpful, but goals can be poisonous. And that's why in my training program, the first thing I put sales reps through is putting together their income goal. But then I've got 4 quadrants. We do your goals, your mindset, your values, and your actions. And we outline those because what I did is I focused on my financial goals. I hit them. But those financial goals came at the compromise of my values, came at the compromise of quality actions, and I wasn't happy. And the third reason that I'm not really a big fan of it is sometimes I've even heard owners encouraging salespeople to go buy stuff because salespeople are more motivated when they're hungry. And I've heard with my own ears on numerous occasions, I encourage my team to buy the new truck, buy the boat, whatever, because that way they'll come back to the table hungry and ready to go. And there's nothing wrong with it. I like nice things, quote unquote showiness is all relevant. If you're in a room full of people making $500 million a year and you're driving a Lambo and a Ferrari, you fit right in. If you're, again, it's all relevant, right? So I'm not saying that people are bad or evil about it. I'm just saying that chasing money, it becomes the core focus and it can be all consuming. And I share that from my own experience and what I saw happen to me. So for me, it took 1, recognizing that. And then 2, I have a new mindset. In my mindset, after reading the book, The Courage to Be Disliked, the author, I can't pronounce his name well, so I'm not going to try, but the book is called The Courage to Be Disliked. And he talks about happiness being what he calls community feeling, being part of a community. And then he goes one layer deeper and he says, happiness is based on feeling of use to other people. I never once in my life had heard that. And I know people listening may have. I learned new stuff that I found out is common sense, by the way. My wife reminds me of this. I was like, I just learned that when people laugh, it releases oxytocin. She goes, yeah, I know that. And I'm like, oh, well, that was earth shattering to me. So, but anyway, that whole getting off course and focusing on the financial gain to me just is a slippery slope. So back to the book. Courage Beat is like, I'm reading this book, talks about being of use to someone. So my mission is to be of use to the highest use possible. And every day, my goal is to close the gap from where I am today to what I've defined as my ideal self. What I view would be who I want to be. And I've journaled. I actually have it. I carry it in my phone. The definition of, definition's maybe the bad word, but I've defined who I want to be. And I've got things I want to work on. One of them is to be calm, composed, and emotionally regulated. And let me tell you, I can be a reactive person. I can be a little, I've had my tantrums in my life. That's something I need to work on, right? So how do I be of use in the highest use and also close the gap from where I am to my ideal self? And to me, that shift, when I look at being of use into the highest use possible, it changed my views about money. And the way that I look at money is a thank you note. Here's a thank you for helping me get from here to there. When I'm selling a roof, here's a thank you note from helping me get this replaced. Whatever it is that we sell or provide, when we do it from that place of being of use in the highest use, your earning potential is a thank you note. And then you can shift your mindset of how do I be of use to the highest use in the greatest capacity possible? And how do I do that in a place from my heart to just better myself and look at that by serving more people? And the byproduct is getting thank you notes. And I like thank you notes. So when I look at them that way, it really changed everything. And now, like even our team meeting, like I'm so freaking excited about what we're doing, what I'm doing, our team's doing, because I'm just like, I'm dialing in and being like, I'm making this better. I'm making this better. I'm giving this everything that I have, So I don't know. That's the scoop. That's why I'm not a big fan of the money chasing thing. And that's why I added to my tagline, I'm sorry, and then I'm going to shut up, why I added smash your income goal and give every customer an amazing experience. Because without that component, the customer is the one that it's at their expense. I apologize for keeping going.
No, it's good. And, it goes back to the question, like, how do you even out those scales? And you had you started with a perfect response and it got better and better. I can't answer that for you. It's something you got to experience. Like, my daughter's 15, and there's just some shit she's not going to listen to me, and she's going to have to learn the hard way, and it's kind of the same thing, right? I'm not referring to people's sales reps as their children, but there are a lot of parallels between running a sales team and being a parent, or running any team, honestly, and being a parent. Yeah. Money's an equation. Money's a part of the equation. It's one variable, right? Yeah. And people, for different people, it'll be a larger variable as to what that recipe for happiness, right, is. I learned this myself as well. I went from making next to no money to making like $60,000 a year. And for me, relatively speaking, I was fucking rich at the time, right? Yep. I'm 18. I made like $54,000. Like, dude, I got money. I got a bonus check coming in at the end of the month. It's going to be $3,000. Let's go. I landed in with a terrible opiate addiction that lasted for years, right? And I got out of it when like 4 years later, and I overdosed, and it was fucking terrible. I rebounded, and it's been great. Yeah. But like, that was an experience that I had to go through myself, and that opened my eyes to like, okay, there is a lot more than just money, right? Because I obviously, when I started looking at myself in the mirror and asking those tough questions, it's like, why are you doing this? It's like, because you're not happy, you're not coping well. Like, what is your problem? Like, what are your issues that you're not working on, that you're avoiding, where you decide that, fuck it, I'm just gonna escape. Yeah. And go get high, right? Because it's easier. Oh, it's way easier than that accountability of, all right, these are my opportunities for growth. This is where I'm weak. These are the things I want to work on. This is how I can be a better person to my family, to my friends, to myself, right? Self-care, caring about yourself, like all these different things. And it was really eye-opening. So yeah, dude, it's you got to experience it. Yeah. Man. Yeah. Missteps. You're always going to have missteps. You're going to take some L's along the way. It's fine. It's fine. I always find it interesting, like, trying to balance holding yourself accountable and not beating the shit out of yourself. I'm a competitive person, hyper competitive with myself. I really couldn't give a shit about the people, like, oh, your competitor's doing this. I don't fucking care. Like, I care. I want to move the needle for myself every single day. And then as a leader of my team, I want my team to move the needle for the company and for our customers. I just compete with myself, and I find I struggle with it, right? It's like, you need to be accountable, but at the same time, like, How do you balance like not beating yourself into a fucking oblivion every single day?
Right?
You got an answer for that, Adam? I got a lot of money for you if you do.
Yeah.
How do you fix it?
No, but I don't. I wish I did, because I would have been given a lot of money, but I don't have an answer. I don't. My answer is everyone's going to be working on that the rest of their life, and there's no quick fix on that one. But I love what you just shared, man. I appreciate
No silver bullet.
Yeah, I appreciate the vulnerability and the realness of all of that. You know, I think we all misstep. I don't think anyone's perfect. Maybe someone disagrees with me on that one. I'm just kidding. I don't think anybody will.
Yeah. Well, if you do, I'd like to have you on the show, and we'll talk.
If
about
you
it.
do, look, do some inner work.
Yeah, look in the mirror.
Yeah.
Well, dude, I know you're pressed for time. You're super busy. I want to honor my pledge that we would keep this to an hour. We're at 59 minutes and 57 seconds. We didn't even get into talking to any of the sales stuff that I wanted to ask you. So maybe there's a part 2 down the road.
Yeah.
I'm incredibly grateful for you taking the time out of your schedule to share value with my audience, and this was an amazing conversation. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks for having me on, man. I appreciate it, Mike.
Yeah.